Hey, how's it going, folks? Stacker Noob UK back once again with a hyperinflation currency video. Hope you're all doing really well. Now, today we're going to have something very different. Those of you on the Silver Forum will have already seen what I have in front of me here. But I thought I'd present it to my subscribers and any other viewers that come along today. I'm, being a silver stacker, I'm very interested in economics and finance, and the situation in Venezuela has caught my attention. I've been watching it very closely. It's an absolutely awful situation what's going on there. The country entered hyperinflation, there's no other word for it. It entered hyperinflation a couple of years ago now, and unfortunately it looks like other emerging market countries might be going the same way. It seems to be a pattern right now. So for example, the Turkish lira has lost a lot of value against the dollar recently, as has the Argentinian peso, the Brazilian real, the South African rand, even the Iranian toman. They've all been absolutely plummeting against Western currencies, I would call them, the dollar, the euro and the pound, especially the dollar though, that's shown particular strength recently. But until recently, Venezuela used the set of notes that you see in front of you, called the Fuertes, the Bolivar Fuertes, which means the Strong Bolivar, which is kind of ironic, I'm sure you'll agree. They recently moved on to the Sovereign Bolivar on the 20th of August, I believe. Essentially, it's the same currency, but they've just knocked 5 zeros off the end, but they have reissued notes for it. So the Bolivar Fuertes, the Strong Bolivar, is no longer legal tender in Venezuela. It means that the notes are being removed from circulation. Many have been destroyed. In fact, the people are just burning them for, instead of firewood, they're burning currency. It's a bit like Weimar Germany back in the day. It's getting pretty ridiculous. In some cases, the notes have been completely repurposed. I've seen handbags made out of these things. But the day after the currency was removed from circulation, I purchased the entire Fuertes set. So there they are there. For me, I wanted to buy them because it's the most recent example of hyperinflation, and I bought it out of pure interest, but also as a collector's item. Some of you may have collected some of the Zimbabwe dollar notes that went up to $100 trillion notes. The $100 trillion note is a highly sought after collector's item now. So it's possible that the notes in front of us will become collector's items as well. But also I bought them to remind myself of really how quickly things can change and why I buy silver and gold. I think the notes themselves are actually really attractive, and they have some really interesting characters, so I thought I'd present them all for you today. I know the intro there was a little long, but I wanted to just kind of get that out of the way, exactly why it is I bought these notes, and the interesting situation, unfortunately, that's going on in Venezuela right now. So let's start with the 2 Bolivar note. The first thing to note was when this was issued, which I believe was 2008, it was worth about 33 US cents. So let's remember that. This note here was worth 33 cents. So it took about 6 bolivars to buy $1 US. So on the front here we have a chap called Francisco de Miranda. Now his full name was Sebastian Francisco de Miranda y Rodriguez de Espinosa. Apologies to any Spanish speakers if I've just butchered that name. He was born in 1750 and he was commonly known as Francisco de Miranda. He was the Venezuelan military leader and revolutionary. Although his own plans for independence for the Spanish-American colonies failed, he was regarded as a forerunner to Simón Bolivar, who's going to be featuring very heavily on the notes. He was basically regarded as the first Venezuelan, and obviously that makes him a very important character on the Venezuelan notes. So here he is here. On the back, this is what I'm talking about, the notes are really cool. So we have the Orinoco River dolphins here, which are pretty nice. So there we go. Also, just so you know that it is real, I have a headlamp here, so I'll just do this. And there you see there's a watermark with Francisco de Miranda there. So that's that. So that was the 2 notes, the 2 Bolivar note. Let's move on to the 5 Bolivar note. Now, this chap here is called Pedro Camejo. Again, apologies if I've butchered the language there. But he was better known as Negro Primero, which actually means the first black. So, you know, they weren't exactly PC back then, but that was what he was known as. And his nickname was inspired because he was part of the Venezuelan War of Independence. He's part of the rebel army, and he was known for his bravery in handling spears, and he was always in the first line of attack on the battlefield. So this guy was basically a nutcase, and he just ran at the Spanish forces during the War of Independence. So he's commemorated on the currency for that reason. On the back here we have some giant armadillos. So not much else to say about that. Pretty cool. Much more interested in our currency in the UK, I think. And again, let's have a look if we see a watermark. There he is. Good old Pedro. You see him in the watermark there. So lovely. So that is the 5 Bolivar note. Put that out there. Now we move on to the 10 Bolivar note. Now I'm gonna butcher the name of this guy because in my research I couldn't get this right. So is it Cacique or Cacique Guaicaipuro? Oh, that is awful. I know I've butchered that name. But he was a native, like indigenous Venezuelan chief of a number of tribes, and basically the Spaniards, when the Spaniards arrived in South America, they discovered gold in the area of this guy's tribe, and they started to exploit the mines, and this guy attacked them for obvious reasons. The Spanish retreated, but then later returned, and he again fought them off. He ended up killing many of the workers at the mines as well, but he was considered a main and central figure in the uprising of the native tribes against the Spanish, and for that reason he is commemorated on the notes here. On the back, this is an odd looking animal, isn't it? But this is the American harpy eagle. Very interesting sort of crown feathers there. And again, let's see if we see a watermark. There he is. There's the watermark there. So just proving that these notes are indeed genuine and uncirculated. So the story of this lady here is actually extremely interesting. I researched this one a lot, but I'm gonna have to do a bit of a quick rundown of her life, which is a shame because she was a very interesting lady. So this is the 20 Bolivar note, and on the front of it we have Luisa Arizmendi. So her full name was Maria Luisa Caceres Diaz Arizmendi, and she was basically considered a heroine of the Venezuelan War of Independence. She was a fierce independence supporter, and her family were essentially decimated by the Spanish loyalist forces, they died fleeing the Spanish. She had 3 or 4 aunts that died in transit on the way to a safe place, and her brother and her father were killed by the Spanish forces as well. While she was fleeing, she met a general of the independence movement, who she'd also met some years earlier at another engagement. She ended up marrying him, and I find this interesting. She was only 15 when she married him, and that guy was 39, so it was a very different time. That probably wouldn't be considered acceptable by most standards today. Unfortunately, after she was married, because she was married to a general of the independence movement, she was actually captured by the Spanish forces while she was pregnant, and that was basically to exert pressure on her husband Juan, who had fled after the Spanish had ordered him to be killed. She suffered reportedly horrific abuse at the hands of the Spanish, but she remained loyal to the independence movement throughout, and she eventually managed to escape incarceration when she was brought to Spain, and she managed to return to Caracas and was labelled a heroine for her loyalty to the independence cause. So I thought it was a really interesting story. So on the back we have hawksbill turtles, which of course feature on coins. I think Nui, isn't it, that makes the hawksbill turtle. I may be wrong, but there you go. Lovely. Right, so that's the 20 note. Okay, so we move on to the 50 note now. And this intelligent looking chap is Simon Rodriguez. And it's funny how he has spectacles here, because on the back we have something called the spectacled bear, but I'll get onto that in a second. So Simon Rodriguez was known for being I'm trying to remember how he was a philosopher and a scientist. Basically, he was a very, very well educated man, and he was Simon Bolivar's tutor and mentor just before the wars of independence. So he's regarded as almost like a father figure for Simon Bolivar. So as I say, we have the spectacled bear on the back there, looking very fierce and very, well, non-spectacled, but there you go. Alrighty, so we're getting on to the main man himself. This is Simon Bolivar. His full name was Simon Jose Antonio de la Santissima Trinidad Bolivar Palacios Ponte y Blanco. A very, very catchy name, I'm sure you'll all agree. He was born in 1783, died in 1830. He's generally known as Simon Bolivar, of course, and also colloquially as El Libertador, so the Liberator. He was essentially the Venezuelan military and political leader, and he liberated the countries that we now know as Venezuela, Bolivia, which he was named after, the country was named after him, should I say, Colombia as well, Ecuador and Peru and Panama. He was actually president of the second and third republics of Venezuela, because they tried to declare independence on a number of occasions, and the Spanish fought back and captured it again. He was the first president of the Union of Gran Colombia, which essentially was quite a few of the South American countries unionized. He was also the 6th president of Peru, and as I say, he was the first president of Bolivia, which was of course named after him. He's essentially considered a national icon in much of present South America, actually, not just Venezuela, and he was less than impressed with the state of his legacy when he died. He essentially said, the only good thing that we have is independence, so he wasn't very impressed with the state of the country when he died, unfortunately. On the back, this is my favourite back of the notes, we have red siskin finches. I'm a fan of the finches because I'm a scientist, I'm a fan of Charles Darwin, and of course the theories of evolution by natural selection were partly inspired by his travels around South America looking at finches. So that there was just moving my camera. That there was basically the Bolivar Fuertes that was in circulation for 8 years. These served to move transactions around for 8 years, from 2008 to 2016. But as I said, unfortunately, Venezuela entered hyperinflation in 2016. Now I will have another video explaining how that might have happened, and I hope you see that as well, because I'm putting a lot of work into it. But essentially in 2016, they had to issue another 6 notes. We'll start with the 500 Bolivar notes. Okay, now that, let me just get my notes back up. That has Francisco de Miranda on it. Essentially, look at that, it's very, very similar. Let me try and get this properly more in the camera, because I'm running out of space here. So you can see the 500 note is essentially the 2 Bolivar note, except it's now repurposed as 500 in slightly different colours. It has exactly the same background as well. So that's the 500 note. Then we have the 1000 note on it, which has Pedro Camejo. There he is again. The back is the armadillo, exactly the same print, just a different colour. Alright, so then we move on to the 2000 Bolivar note. Just get my notes up again. So this is the name I can't pronounce. Cacique Guaicaipuro, let's just call it that. You know, the tribesman that was fighting the initial Spanish invasion. So there he is there. And then we get on to the 5000 Bolivar notes, which has Luisa Arizmendi on it. And again, you see it's exactly the same background as well. So you can see what's happened here. So I'm going to keep going. We have next the 10,000 Bolivar notes, which has Simon Rodriguez, the 4th hour to Simon Bolivar, of course. And again, there's a spectacled bear, exactly the same note, just a different colour. So that's 10,000 Bolivars. And finally in 2016, they also were forced to print a 20,000 Bolivar note, which has Simon Bolivar on it himself. So it's exactly the same. Again, very, very nice colours on this one actually. So there's the red siskin finch, 20,000 bolivars. But that wasn't enough, folks. That was not enough. Hyperinflation was so rife in Venezuela, and still is, but it was so rife in Venezuela that in 2017 they introduced the 100,000 bolivar note. And I've got this in a protective sleeve because this really is the collector's piece of the set. It is essentially the $100 trillion note of Zimbabwe. You know, it's the same sort of thing. It's the highest denomination note that Venezuela have ever printed. 100,000 bolivars. And again, it has Simon Bolivar on the front and it has the red siskin finches on the back. That was printed in 2017, and by 2018 the currency was out of circulation. Like I say, I will have a separate video explaining how this has happened, but I just wanted to show off my lovely collection of Bolivar Fuertes, or Fuerte Bolivars, the Strong Bolivar, which of course it absolutely wasn't in the end days. Absolutely shocking what's happened in Venezuela. Now, remember what I said at the beginning about the 2 Bolivar notes, okay? The 2 Bolivar note was, when it was printed in 2008, worth about 33 cents. It took 6 bolivars to buy $1 US. 33 cents would more than cover the entire value of all the currency you see on the table now. That's how bad it's got. In fact, $1, as these notes were coming out of circulation, the official exchange rate was 1.5 million bolivars to $1. So this note here in 2008 would have been worth the same as 500,000 bolivars, so way more than you see on the table here. It's an absolutely shocking situation that's going on there, I'm sure you'll agree, but I hope that you appreciate the attractiveness of the currency. It's a real shame, because the currency, I think, is very, very attractive, but it's just being burned now. It's completely worthless, and it is just a collector's item. Alright guys, that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a very long video, I do apologise for that, but I hope you find that interesting. Please remember to keep an eye out for my next silver unboxing, which will be within the next week or so. And also keep an eye out for my video on hyperinflation, which I've been working on and I hope to release in the next couple of weeks. Alright guys, take care of yourselves. And from Simon Bolivar and myself, cheers.